Hello, welcome to AirBnB Clone MySQL, right? Where we'll be updating our Airbnb console, adding new features. Like we have a lot of features to implement in this our Airbnb Clone MySQL. Trust me, it's a very amazing project. You get to learn a lot of things like how to build logic, how to come up with logic. You're going to learn how to work with relational database, which is MySQL. You're going to learn how to work with SQL Alchemy. So it's a very fun and interesting project, and you should do what you should hop right on it immediately. Hello friends. My name is I can remember back then in school, this was how we used to introduce ourselves when we want to present like speech on the assembly ground. So I thought, how about I introduce myself that way? But I mean, aside from that, welcome to this amazing series, right? So we'll be going over the Airbnb MySQL project, coming from ALX, right? So a little disclaimer: this project or this video, it's not intended to, teach you how or give you fishes in your mouth, right? So I intend that this video is a guide towards you creating this project yourself, because the essence of this project is basically for you to learn how to draft out, make plans and whiteboard and get stuff done yourself and come up with logic. But I intend doing this video because I've been wanting to give back to the community that helped out in my career at some point in time, right? So that's why I decided to try to produce video for you niggas or record series and teach you how this stuff are being implemented, or the whole thought process, or even explain to you what the project is all about. Because if you understand what the project is all about, kind of get an overview of the project, you will definitely find your way around it. So that's what I'm trying to do. It's not like I want to give you guys fishes in your mouth. Nah, I just want to teach you so that you can understand the whole logic of the project, right? So that's just to put it out there that I'm not trying to feed you niggas like fishes, but I want to teach you so well so you will understand. Because during my own days, it was quite difficult because there was literally no person to teach us. So we had to do it the hard way. But by the grace of God, I'm a little bit advanced than you niggas. So I said, okay, let me try and help out and make life easier for you people, because that's the essence of having an elderly person above you. So they try to try to make you not go through the same process that they went through that was actually way difficult, right? So that's why I'm trying to create these videos for you people and record the series and kind of teach you to really understand how all these logics and concepts came about before produced the particular project, right? So that aside, in this particular video, so what we'll be doing, what I intend doing is kind of taking a tour around the project and kind of explain to you what the project is all about, so that you can kind of start visualizing where you are heading to, right? Where you came from and where you are heading to, right? It will make sense like that. So if we look, if you take a closer look to your on your screen, you will discover a lot going on over here. But don't freak out; these are just relationship between tables, right? But we'll get to see what this is in a short while. So just in case you missed out the first project, or maybe you're still working on the first project. So the first project had some limitations. This is the first project, which is the Airbnb Clone the console, right? So over here, what we basically did is that we just created a minimal console that was just responsible for creating the models. That's what we did over here. And if you can see, just maybe the schema of what you will, definitely what your project will definitely sum up to on the long run. So you can kind of see that over here, they're just really small. So in the console, we are actually just working with the file storage, which you get to see in action. We're just working with the file storage. These over here are fainted, meaning they are not active right now. So you don't have to do anything with these guys over here. So we are just working with the file storage. That's why, it's kind of colorful, but these niggas are fainted, meaning you are not interacting with them. And it had limitations, meaning we just worked on a basic console. So let me show you what I mean by that. So over here, this is actually the first project, which is AirBnB Clone. And if you notice over here, this is AirBnB Clone, right? So right now we could just run our console.py and we could just do create base model. So the base model has been created. We just return the ID of the base model and we can go to our file storage. And you can see we have what we have entered, we have recorded what an entry in the file storage, right? So this is the what? This is the ID which is over here, 6E, and here is 6E. You can decide to create what? You can decide to create another entry, which is user. We just created another mod, which is user. Then we can come over here. Can you see the user model has appeared over here in our database? Then let's do help and see other commands we can work with. Okay, let's do destroy. So I already know how it works, but if we don't know, we could just do help destroy from here, help destroy. And it's a destroy command to delete an instance. Well, not well documented, but I mean, so I already know how it works. So we could just do destroy. Then we can call the model we want to destroy and pass the ID. And right now we've destroyed this. So if we go back to our file storage, we're no longer going to see the user model right now. So can you see it's gone from our database? We just only have the base model, and we can decide to delete the base model. We just have to copy the ID, and we'll come over here and do destroy, and we say base model, pass this. And right now, if we go back to the file storage, we're no longer going to see the base model. Now we're going to have an empty what? An empty file storage. Then we can decide to create again. Then we'll have a model called place. Then we can create place. And we'll go back over here, we now have the place, right? So this was what we had initially in our console. Then now, let's say for instance, we want to create the user and pass maybe the name of the user and stuff like that. So it says class does not exist. So can you see the limitation that we had over here, right? Not really like limitation, but like this was where I wanted us to stop so that we can, kind of like digest everything that we are learning. So they wanted us to take it gradually, right? So a step at a time. So we stopped here, which is just creating the model. So right now in this MySQL, what we'll be doing is that we are going to be working with a relational database instead of a file storage. Or not really. We'll be working with what? We'll be working with a relational database with a file storage. What does that mean? It means that whenever we do anything like create over here, so instead of it to create in the file storage, it's going to create in our relational database, such as MySQL, Postgres, Oracle. But in this particular project, we'll be working with MySQL, which is the one ALS provided us to work with. Makes sense, right? So right now, if I go over here, in the AirBnB Clone MySQL, I will come to the project design. You can now start seeing that this MySQL is now visible. Over here in just the clone, it was fainted. Look at it. Over here to just the clone, it was fainted. But right now is it's visible, meaning we are now going to work with the relational database. So that's what we're going to be doing here. So it means that every single command or every single query that we'll be doing will be affecting our file storage and our relational database, right? So we basically be working with multiple database. And I know you'll be wondering, how then can we do something like this? Yes, you will be doing it, and the whole operations will be going simultaneously. It does make sense. So let me show you what I meant by that. So if we come over here, so this is the AirBnB Clone V2, which is going to be the name of your MySQL, AirBnB MySQL project. So if we want to what we can do is we can say .console to run it, right? So right now we could just do create base model, and it's been created. So right now we can go to the file storage and look at the file storage. The file storage now has the base model, and we could basically also do the create user. So these are models that we already have, and I will show you that in action. And right now we now have the user, right? So this is the V2. But right now we also have a relational database that we are gonna be working with. Makes sense. So that means we can actually still create this base model, and it gets created in a relational database that has rows and columns. Right now, let me show you the setup. So this is the relational database I will be working with, which is called AirBnB Dev DB. So right now, if I use it and I show tables, so can you see in these tables, these are the tables that we're going to have in our application, which is the Airbnb application. And we have the amenities, the cities, the place, and the blah blah blah. And right now we have a table called states. Look at a table called states. So these are the states that we created from our command line. These are the states, right? So how then are we going to do it so that whenever you want to create something over here, it gets created inside of the relational database instead of creating it in the file storage? So to achieve that, we have a little tweak in the syntax that we're going to use. So what is the syntax that we're going to use? Let me show you. don't worry, we'll still see how we implemented all of this, right? So right now, if we want to execute a query to the database, what we can actually do is we have to set what is called an environment variable. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry, I will show you that in action. So right now, we just have to copy this, right? We just have to copy this, and we have to exit our console and paste this. And right now, let me maybe change this city from, okay, let me create a state. Let me create a state instead of creating a city. So let me create a state. So I just copy the command, so it's very lengthy, that's why I don't want to type. Control A. So let me change this California to maybe New Jersey, right? And watch, right now in our database, there is nothing like there is no state like like New Jersey. There's no state like New Jersey over here. Can you see? So right now we could just hit enter. And guess what? We have an error which says an error occurred. Make sure to replace all white space and the value with an underscore. Create example, create user name is equal to Kylie underscore Chuku. So just in case your name has a space between it, make sure to replace it with an underscore. Else our command interpreter will not be able to interpret your command, right? So you can now basically tell what the error is, right? In this New Jersey, we have a space over here. So that's why the command interpreter is not able to interpret it. So how can we fix it? We just basically have to pass an underscore over there and we good. So let's pass an underscore and see what happens. And perfect. It's now able to interpret our command, and an entry has been created. So this is just what they needed to return whenever you create an entry is created or a record is created. Just return the ID of the record that was being created, right? So right now we could try to query our database again, and we can now look for New Jersey. So look at it. New Jersey is now over here. So it's not ordered because the ID is not like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the ID will make use of a unique identifier, a UUID. So you don't expect to see this New Jersey at the bottom. Now it can be placed anywhere because these IDs are not, in alphabetical order. So that's why we have New Jersey over here. We can try to maybe create another, maybe let's say another town, another state. So what state can we create? We could create like New York. Again, sorry, I used to forget. So let's pass an underscore. Perfect. So now let's look for New York. And right now we have New York over here with an ID of what? With an ID of 4F. Over here 4F. So this is the new record that we just created, which is this New York. The new ID, the new record we just created, right? So that's basically everything you need to know about this MySQL. So I know you might be wondering, so what are all these guys over here? So from here, so what are they? What are they doing? What are they doing? I know you might be wondering, what are they doing? So let me show you a little trick. So over here, if I change this DB to something like file storage and hit enter, what do you think will happen? Okay, let's change the name of this from New York to maybe Texas, right? And let me show you something. So over here we just do Texas and we'll create. And let's go back to our MySQL server and hit. Can you see there is nothing like Texas over here? Look at, you can't find anything like Texas. If we want to verify, we could say select star from states where name is equal to what. So this is an SQL query I'm writing. Don't worry if you don't know what it is, but I'm basically trying to check if there is any column or any record with the name of Texas, and we hit enter. So you see it returned nothing, right? But if we do New York, you see it returned an entry. So that means that we don't have anything like Texas. But this query executed, right? So where then is this Texas that we just created? It was persisted in another type of database, which is file storage. And right now we can go to our file storage and you can see we have Texas over here. We have Texas over here. So what happened? We did not create a record in our MySQL, but rather we created it in in the file storage. So that is what I meant by what you'll be managing what multiple database. You'll be the one to tell the interpreter where to what persist the data, either in the relational database or what, or in the file storage that you have in your what, in your application. So that is what you need to know about Airbnb MySQL. So in the next video, we kind of what we now start talking about what all of these extra commands over here are and what they are basically doing, and the whole logic and the whole thought process of what of coming up with an amazing application like this where you get to manage multiple databases. So if you want to see that in action, roll over to what, to the next video. Peace and love. So this project is what is titled AirBnB Clone MySQL. So I'll be going relatively slow so that you will really understand this project, because I believe so well that, you know, if you really understand what the project is even all about, you can start, you know, finding your way around the project. Because I discovered a lot of students actually find it difficult solving the problem or implementing the application just because they don't even understand what they want to do. They don't even know what they are expected to do. They don't even know where they are heading to. You understand? So they're just like reading from head to toes. They don't even know what the application is all about. So that's why before I start teaching, I kind of like give you an overview, teach you what you are even expected to do in the application. So if you understand what you're even expected to do in the application, I believe 100% that it will be very easy for you to want to navigate. Is it clear? So let's go over the application. The application says what? AirBnB Clone MySQL. So what is this application? It's all about is that we will be working with a relational database server, because that's what we'll be deploying. We're not going to be deploying the file storage that we made use of in the previous project, which is the AirBnB clone, just the ordinary clone, right? So we're not making use of the file storage over in this MySQL. So we'll be making use of MySQL server, because that's what we'll be deploying to production. It does make sense, right? So over here, we'll also be managing the file storage and the MySQL, because you can't just like what's it called? You can't just like move from file storage to MySQL. What about the data that was in the file storage? What are you going to do to the data? So you have to what? You have to gradually what? Move from file storage to what? MySQL. That's what ALS is trying to teach us. It made sense, right? But the thing over here now is that how can you manage multiple databases in one application? How can you do that? So the way we achieve that is by what? Is by making use of environment variable. So don't worry, this will sound very abstract right now, because you're not basically seeing what you're doing. But the environment variable, we're going to use it. It's like a conditional statement, right? So we're going to use the environment variable to determine if we are going to work on the MySQL server or we're going to work on the file storage, right? So these are my environment variables that we're going to make use of. So you see this Airbnb env, basically environment. Running environment, it can be dev or test for the moment, then production soon, right? So you're going to see this in action. Don't worry, you get to see what all of these environment variables are. So just know that this environment variable will help us to determine the particular database that we're going to work with. It makes sense, right? Then after that, resources. So just try to look into these resources. I don't know, but I'll be going over these resources. I'll be going over these details over here. So just in case you want to look into them, you can, but if you don't want to look into them, don't worry, as to cover in this video. So let's just go over to the tasks. So the first task says what? Task 0, which is fuck me if you can. And it says, this is where it gets interesting, and this is where I needed to pay a rapt attention. So it's ALX. I'm always grateful to ALX. Those niggas, like, they are doing too much for us. I'll be honest. I'm telling you the honest truth over here, because they're trying to teach you, or teach us in general, how this is being done in the real world. That's the only reason I like, every day I'm like, man, you got this. If I'm being honest, because they are not just teaching you how we do things locally, they are also teaching you, exposing your mind to how these things are being implemented in the real world. And this is where it starts getting interesting, because over here, what did they do? Remember that we had a previous project, which is AirBnB Clone, right? But now, in this application, we are meant to extend our AirBnB Clone. So basically, we can start working on our AirBnB Clone we want to have previously, right? But do you know what they did? They said, no, don't work with your AirBnB Clone. Do you know what you're going to do? You're going to fork another person's repository from GitHub and work with it. The person's repository is going to have what? It's going to have the same contents as your what? As your previous Airbnb console. Are you following what I'm saying? Fork that person's repository, and they have the reason for that. So what is the reason? Why don't they allow you work on your previous repo? Why did they need you to fork some other person's repo? So these are their reasons. So in the industry, you will work on existing code base 90% of the time, which is 100% fact. Your first thoughts upon looking at it might include, who did this code? How it works? Where are the tests? Where is this? Why did they do this like this? Why did they do that like this? I don't understand anything. I will refactor. But the worst thing you could possibly do is to redo everything. But please, don't do that. Note, the existing code base might be perfect or might have some errors. Don't always trust the existing code base. And it says, for this project, you will fork this repository, which is this code base over here. Don't worry, we'll click it in the short while. Update the repository to AirBnB Clone v2, update the README, and blah, blah, blah. So what are they trying to teach us over here? So this is actually a soft skill, which is what? Which is debugging some other person's code. And this skill that you see, it's very, very difficult to have in your skill set. Because to even debug your own code is a problem. Now think of debugging some other person's code. The person wrote a whole lot of logic, logic coming from his own brain. Right now you're trying to read the logic, understand the logic, maybe do some refactor, or update everything. So that's the skill that they want to teach us, and this skill is an essential skill for every single developer, because 90% of your time, as they say, you'll be working on an existing code base in real world. So that existing code base was written obviously by some person. Even if it was written by a bot, the bot has its own logic to apply. So you have to read and understand it. And that's what they are trying to teach us in this particular project. You know why I love ALX so much is that they try to teach us real world. Everything they are about real world. Immediately they are touching on real world. So the thing is that they will not approach you and tell you, okay, listen, this is the skill I want to build. We want to build on you. But they'll be doing it behind the scene, preparing you for greater heights. But you will not even be aware. I was never aware of all of this while I was doing it, but later I figured out, so this was what they was teaching me then. You just be shouting, when you come across it, be like, I remember doing this during my days in ALX. You understand? Yeah, it's very, very difficult to debug some other person's code. I have some proofs to back them up. So we have this says, when you try to debug someone else's code and
what the fuck is this piece of shit?
Forgive me for the F word. But it's very, very difficult. It's a very, very difficult skill to have. We have another one. It says, either debug someone else's code or dance with an alligator. Then developers. Then you see that developers choose to dance with an alligator than to debug someone else's code. So you see, I was carried away, but you can see that it's a very difficult skill to have. So that's what ALX is trying to teach us in this particular project. So we're gonna still follow the same procedure, the same pattern. We're gonna fork some other person's code base and try to read, understand, make modifications, refactor, improve, and even get it to what we actually understand. It does make sense, right? It's gonna be difficult, but stick around and you will get the best out of this video. And they say something else again. They say the existing code base might not be perfect or it might have errors, which is perfectly true. And I think they did this on purpose, because the code base has a lot of errors that we're going to see in action, and we're also going to fix them ourselves, right? And that aside from the way we come over here and it says bug free, and it says, do you remember unit test model, which is like a nightmare to lots of developers. But don't worry, I'm going to make it relatively very, very easy for you. I will teach you how to test our models. We're going to be writing tests for every single model that we create and every single improvement. And aside from that, I will also teach you how to test your relational database. We'll be creating a separate database for it, and write some queries and test the database, test the state of the database. I'm going to teach you marking, patching, skipping some tests. It's going to be very, very interesting. I've never promised anything and I did not fulfill it for you guys, so just stick around, don't freak out. You're going to learn how to test. having or knowing how to test is a very great skill you should have as a developer, right? It does make sense. And aside from that, we're going to be improving our console. Basically, look at over here, the create. We're just going to improve the create command to accept parameters. So like over here, we could just go to this place and now do something like this. And we could do dot console. So right now we could do create user name. I think it was email. Then we'll have to do this. cs3 at gmail.com. Perfect, it has now created, right? Then we could go over here, and can you see the email is now added over here? So that's just improvement. So we are now allowed to accept parameters. And remember that in the previous, just the retro AirBnB console, we cannot accept parameters in the command, right? Then after that, we are going to set up our database, set up the test database, and update the file storage. And here comes the senior boy, which is what we now migrate from file storage to working with my SQL database. And right here, we're not going to write raw SQL queries or make use of drivers. We're going to make use of a model called SQL Alchemy, which is basically a relational mapper that maps our Python classes to tables and Python objects to records in the database. Then it's a whole lot. I must tell you the truth, it's a whole lot. Can you see the change that we're going to make? It's a whole lot. But you don't have to freak out. This like a baby's walk. We'll walk over it and get over it. Trust me. Then once you get this done, you are good to go. We just have to keep making modifications. You know how ALX present their work. Just keep making improvements, and we done. And as you can see, I got everything like green. Like I basically got everything green. So green, I can't stop counting green. So like I got everything like 100%. But if you notice, I was getting like 50%. I think what I had this project was like 42% out of 200%. So the reason was that I did not do this project like the first deadline, the second deadline. I think I did this project a month after. And why? So it was because when I first got the project during my days, it was hard for me to comprehend everything that was happening in the project. And I think I was struggling with SQL Alchemy then or something like that. I found it difficult to solve the problem and implement the application because we created and we crafted a lot of logic in this project. Trust me, there's a lot of logic going on over here. And you know how ALX does that things. It's working on my machine, working perfectly well. It does not guarantee a green check on the checker. So when I wrote some code, I tried working on my machine, I tried to check, it was not working. I'm like, you know what, we'll have to just skip this and come back to this maybe some other time. And I think I came back to this project a month after, and I was able to have a lot of knowledge, and I've understood a lot of things in SQL Alchemy. So when I got back to implement the project, it was relatively easy for me. So why am I putting it out there? I'm putting it out there so that you will understand that most times you get stuck on a particular project on ALX. Don't try to copy or don't try to find a way around it. You might want to skip and come back later. The problem is that you guys find it difficult coming back later. But if I show you my intranet, I always come back later. I skip most of the project most of the times. Because our brain are built differently and our brain are not unique. So you might understand something immediately, but I find it difficult understanding it immediately. So what do? I just basically skip it. Then maybe when I go read a lot about that concept, I come back and do the project. So it's not a must I will write the project within the deadline. Most times I submit my projects after a month, not even the first, not even the second deadline. I just make sure I keep track of my score so I don't get below 80%. The end goal is to have a full understanding of the application that you can teach other person, you can explain every single code you wrote, and every other thing following the project. That's the whole main logic. It's not about getting a 200% check. You feel me? I just wanted to put it out there just in case you are struggling so you don't give up and keep going. It's going to make sense in a short while. Trust me, as long as you keep going, it's going to make sense. Then that aside of the way, so in the next video, we are going to clone the code base as we are instructed over here. So this code base, we're going to clone it in the next video and try to read and understand the code base and see if there is any modification that we have to make to the code base. If there is, we make modification. If there is not, we quickly jump straight to to improving our commands. And that's basically everything we need to do in this video. So if you want to see that, you just basically have to do it to like, subscribe, share, comment, and do your possible best to support the channel the best way you can. Peace and love. You can now roll over to the next video.